We have such a wonderful lunch planned, and I don't want it to get cold either. The Reyes Bakery is doing an incredible spread for us. Vegan pizzas that will just knock your socks off. Incredible vegan sandwiches and stuff. So we got to make sure. Hey, it's all about the food, right? So that's right, man. That's right. Okay. As many of y'all as can come up here. I know you like to be in the back and everything. Okay. All right. I'm going to say his first name, and he's going to say the last part because it embarrasses me because I'm not French. Dr. Gaston
Cornu-Labat.
See? I would never even try that. It's beautiful. Isn't it beautiful? Gorgeous. This man is amazing. The first moment I spoke to him on the phone, I felt like I had found some long lost relative or something. I mean, his enthusiasm for what he does and his advocacy and his willingness to put everything on the line for what he believes in. I mean, all our guest speakers pretty much fall in that category. But this guy, amazing. He is a surgical he's a surgeon at the Tahoma Clinic in Redmond, Washington. If y'all have heard of Dr. Jonathan Wright, he is a respected member of that crew. And the thing about Tahoma Clinic, I want to make the point because it was the only place in the United States in all my research that I found a medical clinic that does what we believe in here at Cuchara. And what they do is, and stop me if I misspeak, but if you get a diagnosis of lupus or cancer or whatever, they're not going to give you one path to follow. They're going to educate you, and they're going to give you all kinds of options. And they're just these incredible doctors, real doctors, who believe in the health of the patient as opposed to paying the bills or whatever. And this man can tell you about being persecuted and all that stuff, which is an amazing story. And that he's here today and he does what he does. We all of us owe him such a debt of gratitude for what he's done. Dr. Gaston.
Well, thank you very much. That made me blush quite a bit. So we just went through a fantastic presentation by Robert with a wealth of information. And I hope everybody took notes. And if not, hopefully when will be available on YouTube, and you will be able to go over, because really the information that was brought forward is very, very useful. And there was a lot of it. Now, for this next presentation, I'm not going to be giving information. If everything goes according to plan, I'm going to make you think. Which is going to hurt. But it was quite a challenge after I received the invitation from Danny and trying to figure out what the most appropriate interaction that should be this particular moment. And there were two guiding principles. There was the word solutions and the word outside the box. So I tried to stick to those two things and have an interaction with you today that will, well, bring forward those two things. Hence the thinking. So it's going to be fairly brief. There's about 15, 17 slides. And after I'm done talking, then we'll have time to see where that attempt to think is leading us. Okay. So every good presentation is supposed to start always with the most appealing to us humans, which is once upon a time. So once upon a time on a winter day, somewhere in 1961, there was an assistant professor of meteorology at MIT by the name of Edward Lawrence, who was, for the second or third time that day, was running an experiment on his computer. There were computers in the 60s. They were large. Well, MIT had a computer. And he punches all the variables in, and this program he was running was a program that ran on 12 variables. And what would output the program were graphs in lines rising and falling. And it was about weather prediction, so weather patterns. So he inputs, and off he goes to get a cup of coffee. And when he comes back, he's totally mind blown, is the expression, because what was there was totally unexpected and totally different from the 2 times he had run it before. And he realized that one of the variables, which had been 0.506127, he had rounded it to 0.506. And the very, very minuscule change in the initial variables led to a completely different output for the following 2 months, the projection of 2 months. So this led him to a very powerful insight on how nature works. And a few years later, he ended up publishing a paper called Predictability: Does the flapping of butterfly wings in Brazil lead to a tornado in Texas? Which is very well pointed. This is the famous butterfly effect. So the butterfly effect talks about seemingly insignificant changes in the initial conditions of a system that can lead to very significant emergent changes or consequences. So I thought this would be a perfect way to try to think outside the box, because we are dealing with a system, and why do we need to think outside the box? Albert Einstein, among many other contributions, helped us answer that question when he said very clearly, we cannot solve our problem with the same thinking we used to create it. So whatever we are in that is not working the way we expect it to work, well, we're in it. We need to step out of it to be able to see it differently. So, thinking outside the box. And the butterfly effect is the proposed way of thinking outside the box. Complex systems, highly sensitive to their initial conditions. When the butterfly effect started being fully understood, hopefully not for all, because we still, for example, introducing genetically modified trees in our forests, but for many scientists, it brought a significant degree of humbleness, because we started grasping the tremendous complexity and the interconnectivity and the tremendous difficulty of being able to predict the impact that one variable or 2 variables or a handful of variables is going to have in a natural system. So the benefit we have right now in terms of, when we talk about solutions, we are essentially dealing with a problem. And I think we all can agree, we have discussed right to try as a means of addressing the core problem we're all facing, which is healthcare and health. I think unanimously here we can agree that we are in a healthcare crisis, and we are even in a health crisis. So, we want to think outside the box. We are acknowledging we have a problem. How about if we review what the core elements of that problem is? What are the core elements of the healthcare system? And based on those core elements, based on the tendencies those core elements display, and the interactions that come out from those elements and their tendencies, this is the system we have. So if we review those, maybe we can find some seemingly small changes in the initial conditions of the system that can then have a major impact and allow a completely different system to emerge. And if we do find that, that is the easiest way to resolve all these. Yep. So in nature is a challenge, but in social sciences or in man-made systems, things are different because we want to think we're very smart, but really, when we look at nature, creator, whatever corresponds there, that's the best engineer by far, and we're not even close. So, what is the basic layout of the healthcare system? That's the next slide, sorry. So, when we look at the system, at the very, very core, we have people with health problems. We have practitioners, and practitioner is a very broad term that doesn't include any license or any title. Similar as healer, the way Robert was using it before. So practitioners with solutions to those problems. Information, which is the commodity that's being exchanged. And that's the very, very, very basic, the very core of the healthcare system. Then we have that applied information that has led to industry in many forms. And then as all these started growing in size, government regulation came into play. When the pie started getting big enough, then the government stepped in. So really, people, practitioners, industry, and government that regulates, those are the basic components. Information is in the middle, and it's the core commodity of the system. So understanding this basic layout, let's look at tendencies. Common behaviors, the prevalent way the elements behave. Now, I'm not going to be talking about absolutes. So every single one of you is going to think of examples based on your experience. None of the examples will likely fit perfectly well in the description I'm going to give, because I'm talking about tendencies, not particulars. And these tendencies they come out of the observation of a very large number of elements interacting. So please keep that in mind. So let's start with patients. Let's start with the people. The very basic element. Okay. So most likely unconscious and most likely as a consequence of conditioning. The most common tendency, so I don't want to get in your way. The most common tendency in the behavior, in the approach of the people towards their health issues is that of the passive observer. The most common approach I received from patients throughout my quite a few years in medical practice, and particularly significant when I was as a surgeon working in the core of conventional medicine, has been the expression, "Doctor, I really don't know what's going on. It ain't working, but here are the keys to my body. Please call me when it's fixed." This has been consistently in the great majority of times, and I was looking for this. So I was always starting my interaction with the patient, trying to figure out whether we're standing. And by far, the most prevalent way of interaction from the patient is this detached passive observer. We won't get too much into why things happen this way. That can be for a whole conference on its own. But this observation is valid. And what does it lead to? Well, The next statement I'm going to make has many layers, so it's heavy. But at the most fundamental level, I am standing exactly where my feet took me. So I am the co-creator of my reality. I have moved to manifest what I'm manifesting today. So people that resonate with these and understand these are those that are healthy, that live long, fulfilling, productive lives. But this is completely the opposite from the passive observer. And not acknowledging these is doing a transfer of power into the side of the equation where it doesn't belong. Let me pick on you. Are you a doctor? Oh, okay, so then you're not going to be good for the example because you have studied medicine. How about you? Perfect. And you're Debbie. Have you studied medicine? So, it is logical to assume that I've been in medicine for 30 years. I know about human body, about health, about disease, a lot more than you. That's logical to assume. Now, unless you very, very specifically tell me exactly what you're looking for in relation to your health, I cannot presume to know what you need. The only thing I can do, no matter how good I am in what and how much I know, is based on you telling me what you're looking for, then share with you those roads that I know that are likely to lead you there. But I can't even guarantee they'll work. And that's as far as my power as a practitioner goes. The healing, it's a process that comes from within. It's not a process that is brought from outside in. And this is a reality we have to acknowledge. We have to get used to it. We have to accept it. Again, those that are extremely healthy in their life and they're well balanced, this is at the core of the way they handle their lives. I become a tool as a practitioner for that person. I become a map. I'm not the driver. Yet, this is not commonly what you see with doctors, and particularly, I've seen it in every spectrum of healthcare. It's particularly significant with MDs, medical doctors. And one of the most common phrases used is a very condescending, Mrs. Smith, this is what you need. For me, there's a tremendous amount of arrogance in a statement like that, even after 30 years of doing medicine. When the person is the passive observer, the person is empowering the wrong side of the equation. And unfortunately, most practitioners fall for it because power is alluring. Power is enthralling. And power is very good for business too. So we buy into it. We buy big time. Actually, I'm going to quote my nurse Terry, who's doctor. Right next after God and ready for a promotion. And please tell me if you've never met a doctor with that attitude. It's very common. What a confusion that implies. What a profound confusion. What a profound misunderstanding of the reality of healing. Our role is to allow you to honor that truth, that the healing comes from within. But it's not what's happening. So, The passive observer, which can be summarized as the eternal search for the magic pill, that is only an illusion, is the common, most prevailing attitude in people, the first component of the healthcare system. Let's look at the second one. Practitioners. So we just reviewed a quite prevalent confusion that you see in practitioners. And two things on this I want to say before I start addressing my colleagues and myself, of course. One is I'm a firm believer that everybody, or almost everybody that goes into healthcare, has the best interest of the other at heart, at least at the very beginning of the path. Maybe it gets lost somewhere. It's certainly out of the education we receive, particularly MDs, does not help at all. Actually, we get conditioned to believe the confusion we were discussing a minute ago. We're purposefully led to believe that confusion. So that said, I'm going to do a practical classification of practitioners based on capacity for empathy. I'm going to use capacity for empathy, and we're going to end up with this little line that's down below. And there are three types of practitioners based on capacity for empathy. One type, or the first type, is practitioners that have none. They have no capacity for empathy. Correspondingly, what they do is not necessarily what is the right thing to do, but what is perceived as in their own benefit. That's one group. It's here, one extreme. Then we have the other extreme. The other extreme are those practitioners that have too much empathy. So they go out of their way when they feel things don't fit. They go out of the way for the other. They go out of the way for doing what is the right thing, even at their own detriment. So in the middle, these two extremes represent something maybe, and this is an eyeball calculation, somewhere between 5 to 10% of the total. So we have about 90% of practitioners that are somewhere in the middle. So they do have enough empathy to perceive that things are not quite right. And as all of us, as we go experiencing our practice, the more we experience, the more we start picking up that the descriptions we're giving do not fully fit the reality that we observe. So the sense that things are not right is there, but they're not empathic enough to be able to overcome two things: comfort and fear. Doctors, particularly today, and particularly MDs, are given a tremendous amount of benefit for being doctors. Yet, that can be taken at the drop of a hat. Just like that, because the system is very oiled, geared to have a sword over our neck continuously. So while we're very comfortable with what we do in terms of the benefits we get, personal benefits, we are kept in fear all the time because it can be taken away like nothing. So the majority are there. And of the three groups, the first group I mentioned, with no empathy, maybe they know things are right, maybe they don't. The bottom line is they don't care. And they are the typical people that maintain the status quo and want to make sure nothing changes. And their primary tool is fear. They use fear for that. The second group, with too much empathy, they know things are wrong, And they go out of the way, even at their own peril, to challenge the status quo. The group in the middle, let me finish one concept about the group with too much empathy. They're either fearless or they overcome their fear. The group in the middle is the one that is controlled by fear. And if the fear factor is not too much, they will do what corresponds, what's supposed to be the right thing. If the fear factor kicks up, they will conform. And they will follow whoever or whatever is putting pressure. Unfortunately, this represents the great majority of practitioners right now. They're followers. The ones on the no empathy side of the equation, they go after whoever is making noise. And the ones that are making noise for change to happen are left alone. And they're the ones with the arrows on their backs. That's what pioneers are. Pioneers are the ones walking with the arrows on their backs. And the arrows don't hurt too much. What hurts the most is that you're left hanging alone. That's probably the worst part of it. Feeling that everybody turns their back. So, that's what's up with practitioners. Let's look at the third piece, industry and government. Commonly, the BAT, what is the word? It's coming in Spanish and not in English. Okay, like the culprit of everything, okay? But in my opinion, the least significant player here. They're opportunistic. The chance opens up, they step in. And the reality of the industry is one thing, since this is applied technology that comes from the information that is exchanged between patients and practitioners. The reality of the industry is that it's totally subservient to the relationship between the patient and the practitioner. Subservient to what happens at closed doors between the doctor and the patient. They know this. So, one characteristic of the industry is within the big pie, the whole pie, there are very few players, relatively very few players that represent a big chunk of that pie. So they're very powerful. So they use all that power to exert control over practitioners and to exert control over patients. Since they are subservient to that, they make every effort to control that. And the other area where they use the influence is on the government. The government should be an entity that I'm very apolitical, so I use very plain logic with this. Should be an entity that is attending to the prevailing interests of the population it governs. Yet, what in practicality happens is the government attends to the prevailing pressures of that population. And there may be a mismatch between the prevailing pressures that can be exercised by a few with a lot of power versus the prevailing interests, which is, I think, we see commonly, that mismatch between pressures and interests. Now, characteristically, when they go attending to the pressure and they have to disattend the interest, more often than not, this is done through actions that are wrong and done in a very unscrupulous way. How is it that people doing unscrupulously doing illegal, wrong things, many times illegal, they get away with it. What is the factor that allows that to happen? So, one of the proposals today is that that factor is impunity because of a mechanism of cloaking. When we talk about, and it came up several times, it's probably going to come up several more times throughout this day, let's pick on the FDA. Oh, the FDA did this wrong, the FDA. The FDA is a construct. It doesn't really exist. There's Joe, there's Susie, there's Peter, there's Scott, and regular people like you and me go to church, have social life, go to the store, go to the country club. They make decisions. They take actions. Every single action, every single decision from every single corporation, be that a large multinational private corporation, be that a huge government agency, the reality is that there are people like you and me making decisions and taking actions. But then we talk about the FDA. We talk about Merck. We talk about Monsanto. We talk about humongous, untouchable entities. And those actions by those individuals are totally cloaked behind these humongous monsters that are untouchable. And that's how this type of unscrupulous attention to the pressure instead of the interest is able to happen. Yeah, money is, greed, certainly behind. So, in summary, people tend to be the passive observer, be looking for this illusion of the magic pill that will fix everything with nothing changing. The industry understands these and attends to this illusion of the magic pill and controls all the elements of the equation as much as possible because it's very good for benefit. And in the meantime, that control exercised through a very impune way of acting, cloaked behind these seemingly untouchable giants. And then practitioners, which a small percentage, they don't care. They like the way things are, and they do everything possible to maintain it. A very small percentage are very concerned and go out of the way to fix it, but they are target practice for the cycles. And then the majority in the middle that doesn't do anything because they're too afraid, even though, and this is very puzzling, is even though they are the majority, they feel powerless. And that is such a mystery. But this is basically the summary of what's going on, a perspective of what's going on. So with that said, let's go into, wrong way, sorry. Solutions, concrete, practical. We started at the beginning saying seemingly insignificant changes introduced into the initial conditions of a system can lead to the unfolding of enormous changes in said system. So what can we introduce into these variables we just saw that can represent concrete, practical solutions? So let's look at industry and government. Yes, here certainly right to try law is one great step in the right direction. That's all I'm going to say about this particular point because we talked extensively about it, and I'm not going to add in much more. Thinking outside the box. Well, one thing we can start practicing is taking away the impunity. Every time something like this comes up from a government agency, from a corporation, we don't talk about corporation X or government agency Z. We talk about Joe, Susan and Peter, that working for X or Z, did this and this and this. Public campaigns, reporting, lawsuits. These actions should start being directed specifically to the individuals that are behind every single action that is taken by these seemingly untouchable giants. And the first time the skin is going to be thick, there's going to be protection. The second time that skin is going to start wearing off. The third time they're going to look at their superior and say, hey, you go do it. I don't do it anymore. I'm getting hammered. So that's one first step. Simple, practical solution. Even if we just start shifting in our discourse, in our language, and instead of talking about FDA, we find out who the director of the FDA is, and we start talking about that particular Joe Smith and whoever is behind in the ladder. And we make an effort to identify those people. If we start just changing our language, we're going to be taking steps in the direction of a practical and concrete solution. So, let's look at solution number 2. Practitioners. My mouth is getting quite dry. No, I don't. Actually, I welcome them. Yeah, thank you. I welcome those germs. Thank you. So let's look at practitioners. What can we do? We saw 3 types. Those that don't care and maintain things as they are. Those that do care and make an effort for change, but end up being target practice. And then the middle that is very afraid. And they will only move one way or another. I mean, they know things are wrong, but they only move based on the fear factor. Well, how about seeking out, identifying, defending, protecting, cherishing, facilitating the path of those pioneers, seeking them out, finding them, bringing them forward, not leaving them alone, totally the opposite. Create the conditions necessary for whatever proposal for change they harbor so that it can become a reality. How can this be done? Well, many ways. One way can be get a foundation, the Pioneer Fund. A foundation that specifically seeks out these people, finds them, protects them. Be careful though, because false idols come up. And that happens. False idols, that can happen. The wrong message, the wrong motivation that is appealing to what people want to hear. But in general, what's appealing to what the masses want to hear is not a message of change. The other caution on these is pioneers. Do not idolize any pioneer. They are regular folk. They're just plain vanilla flavored human beings with shortcomings and gifts like everybody else. But if the pioneers are brought up in our society, then the group in the middle, the one dominated by fear, they will follow. They are followers. They are followers. And if they see that there's nothing to fear by bringing forward change because people care and protect them, they will follow in a heartbeat. They're actually looking forward to that. They're wishing that could happen. But they don't dare. So that's one practical ideas for such foundation are in the drawing board. So that can become a reality very, very quick. So the last one, most significant one, is the people. We talked about pioneers, we talked about practitioners. I'll tell you right now, talk about government agencies, corporations. Right now, me as an expert, I'm here addressing you as an audience. So there's a line. On this line, the solution is not on this side. Solution is right there. It's always been and will always be. And until we figure this out, we're stuck where we're at. So solution number 3 is the people. So we discussed that the commodity in the healthcare system is information. Now people at this point and in these very exciting times we're living in, the sense that things are wrong is there. It's quite prevalent. The sense that we are grabbing to an illusion of the magic pill. People are starting to get it, or at least are starting to run out of excuses to hold that. But anything beyond that sense that we're holding to an illusion is very foggy. It's very foggy. The only thing, the most prevalent sense is things are not quite right the way they are. I don't know anything beyond that. So we need to bring the wind that will clear that fog. And there's practical ways of doing. There's many ways of doing. I want to honor Danny right now because her idea, it's very good. It's specifically geared for that. And this is perfect time to share a project I'm working on. I've been working for about 6 months, specifically directed to this. And we call it the Health U project. And it takes on, it's not an original idea from me. I learned about it and I just took on with it because I thought it was fantastic. It's been brought up already, the etymology, the origin of the word doctor is teacher. So becoming an educator, in my perspective, in my understanding, our role as educators is the role of the practitioner in the new medicine that's dawning. I have no question about that. So the practical way of addressing these is by me going out to the community, and I'm not particularly interested in this project for those people that are into natural medicine, that are into taking care of themselves. My target is those that have no clue. And those that have no clue, that are already sensing the pain of where they're at. So I go out to the community to invite for a free dinner, like if I was selling a timeshare, or if I was selling something, how to invest in the real estate market. Same principle, the same technique, the same marketing technique. And they get invited to a free dinner, and they have to listen to something. Somebody's going to talk. I do get the chance to address an audience, and what I do in this presentation is lay out what's going on with the system today and where the passive observer attitude it's likely going to lead. And when you start laying out the numbers, they're very crude. And for a 20-some, 30-year-old doesn't mean too much. But for a 55 to 60-year-old that already probably want 2 or 3 prescription medications, that means a lot. So then after I lay out the state of affairs, I say, okay, let me invite you to go back to school. And you sign up for a 6 or 9 month program. You're going to get a curriculum. You're going to get classes every Saturday. And you're going to get very close regular visits for coaching with the practitioner. And you're going to go back to school to earn a degree in taking care of yourself. And when this happens, I'm so convinced this is the answer to changing the system. Because when people wake up, that's all it's going to take. When we look at a system, no system is built from the top down, ever. There is no spectacular, luxurious penthouse before the foundations are laid. No system will ever be changed from the top, not unless the base has changed enough to allow such leaders to arise. Waiting and asking for this to happen is to be waiting on an illusion to become a reality when it is just an illusion. So the critical mass for change is already here. I can sense it. I think everybody can sense it that looks into this. We just need to come together. Thank you. So,
You had me falling there for a minute. Oh, wow.
well,
You have something else?
no, I want to say I'm open to
Yeah.
questions. Thing is, yeah, it's okay if there are not too many questions because I know I dropped quite a bomb. I know I dropped quite a thing here, so do some thinking. Go ahead.
I'm really curious at the response. How many people do you have enrolled in the
Oh, it's going slow. It's going slow. The key is marketing here. So, and you know, to put the marketing, to do this move the right way, you need a little bit of financial backing, which is a challenge for me right now. So it's moving very, very slow.
So how long have you been working at
Well, promoting it about 2 months, and it's very slow because you have to get discover the specific channels for the community you're in. It requires every step requires money at the beginning until you get the first set of people that start signing up, and then it maintains itself. It's self-sufficient, but at the beginning requires a lot of effort. And the biggest challenge has been the development of the curriculum, because the curriculum really, all the information is out there. Now the challenge has been to present it in a way that is empowering, and this is the key. The core of the program is about what is the most effective way of empowering. And that's not that is common. That's not something that's common. So that has required a lot of work. The charge for the program is between 6,000 and 9,000, depending on the program.
what are the demographics?
Well, what we're targeting is people in their 50s and 60s, middle income. They are the ones that are the most ignorant about there's other ways of doing things. And they are the ones that are feeling the pain of the system the most right now. So they are the ideal they are the real target. The ideal target would be people in their 20s and their 30s, but they're still in their invincible phase. How am I going to spend this much money? Yeah, that's not for me. So unfortunately, they would be the ideal, but they're not open, they're not receptive to it.
I would sort of disagree with you on that.
Oh, excellent. Unless their experience is pointing them the other way, but that's not the common. That's not the norm. Still, we have most people relatively healthy. Sure. No question that they are there. Yep. They're still not quite open.
I don't know, I have children in that age bracket,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of their friends, some of them are like high school assistant football coaches, and they're taking their teens
Mm-hmm.
to
Oh, sure, but
where they learn diet,
Mhm.
fix their own food, and do things like that. That was never heard of in my day,
well,
being in high school.
things are changing, and they're changing fast. There's no question about that. And we're living in very, very exciting times.
Yeah. So, and I think there's a lot, especially in Colorado. I mean, Colorado's a pretty healthy state.
Yeah. hmm
So,
Yeah, but it's not the average, unfortunately.
yeah.
Yeah, and what we're targeting is the average.
Can you tell me, we hear a lot about a decline in the numbers of physicians. Do you see that in your?
No, what I'm seeing, one of the things that's being observed is burnout. It's a tremendous rate of burnout. It's humongous. This is one of the solutions this program brings, because it shifts so dramatically the interaction between the patient and the practitioner. It's like, I'm not here putting out a fire that you may or may not be willing to put out, but you're going to come and pressure me to put it out. And I don't have to do that. Now, you're willingly coming to me to figure out how you can help yourself. So that is such a drastic change. It's a profound change. And that's one of the most extraordinary aspects of this. So one of the things that's happening with physicians, they're getting burned out. The system it's just so deeply wrong that we would spend the whole afternoon talking about it.
Is that not an assist, ultimately, having physicians burn out, does that not ultimately assist the transfer back to the passive observer who now no longer can find?
Well, listen, yes, if we were to think that there is a profound intelligence behind the design of the system we have, I would agree with you. However, there is no such thing as a profound intelligence behind the system we have. It's actually the consequence of short-sightedness and a lot of stupidity. This is the system we're in. So, of course, because it's not real, it doesn't represent the reality of what is. Of course it's going to burn out. The system itself is going to collapse. Any system, by definition, that is out of balance, the only way it can sustain itself over time is by a tremendous and ever-increasing input of energy to maintain it. But it will reach that point of exponential growth of the cost, at which point it will collapse. So it's inevitable if it doesn't have a sense of balance. A balanced system is a system that represents the reality. Consequently, it's written in itself the sustainability or self-sustainability. Yes. Yes, it's the same system. It's the same system in everything relating to the human being. We use healthcare as an example, but every aspect of our interaction, it's this type of things. We see them over and over.
You guys, boy, how
Yep.
I could listen to. Oh man, now you know why he's so exciting to talk to. Is because he's got all the arrows right here. You can't even see his suit.